We're live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into today's recap of the Brooklyn Nets versus the Detroit Pistons, I want to give a quick shout out to our merch sponsor, Grind Clothing Co. Make sure to go follow them on Instagram. On their Instagram, you can find our links to our merch, our first merch drop. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, cutoffs. We got men's, women's, all different types of sizes. So go check out those links. And then also go check out Grind Clothing Co.'s drops. They got some good styles, a lot of different variety. So everybody can find something they like. Also, if you want convenience to find our links to our merch, you can find that in the description below of this video. And you can also find that in our YouTube bio. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let's get into today's recap. The Pistons snap a 4-game losing streak against the Brooklyn Nets. Final score 130 Detroit, 122 the Brooklyn Nets. This game was in Brooklyn on the home turf of the Nets. What are some of your first takeaways from this game, Ryan?
Energy. We came out with energy tonight. The last game, as I said, I thought they were sluggish. Greg mentioned that he thought it was due to the Paris trip, which honestly makes sense. And then they got beat bad by Milwaukee at home, and that's embarrassing. You don't want that happening.
Right.
So, of course, they're going to come out and just try and go out with a bunch of energy and win the game. It was a new rotation tonight, which I honestly didn't mind it. I didn't mind the starting five tonight. Everybody in the starting five had double digits in points.
Right.
Jaden Ivey, my goodness, in the first quarter alone had 12 points of his 16. Bogey, though, I don't know what exactly was going on there. That was probably his worst game as a Piston so far.
Right.
He just could not shoot the ball, but I think it's because Brooklyn game planned for him.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think if I was an opposing coach and I see the Detroit Pistons on our schedule, Ivy can be hit or miss, and especially with Cade Cunningham out, you're like, ooh, who's the most consistent guy that we know is going to give us buckets? And I think that's Bojan Bogdanovic for the Pistons. So that totally makes sense that teams are scheming against him. When he has a couple games in a row of scoring 30 points, that's kind of undeniable. You got a game plan for that because that's just too dangerous.
Yeah, and then we had 8 guys in double-digit scoring. Like that's winning basketball. And
Yeah.
then our defense tonight was much better than Milwaukee, or it has been recently. And the communication has been there. Like you had Livers diving all over the place, and Kyrie couldn't really do that much. I mean, yeah, he scored, but still, we beat them 130 to 122.
Right. And we see that the Pistons totals 5 blocks, 12 steals. I mean, 12 steals is kind of like, whoa, okay, that definitely deserves to be acknowledged. Like, if you're getting double-digit steals and you're not winning the game, you should be reevaluating what's going on here. So I think 12 steals at the end of 4 quarters is definitely the recipe for success.
Yeah, the defense definitely backed up the offense tonight, which is what you need to do to win. And shooting at the free throw line, we shot great. We didn't shoot bad at all. So when you break down the key takeaways in tonight's game, I'd say defense, offense, and the ability to make free throws won us the game. And yeah, Nick Claxton had a great game. Edmund Sumner had a great game.
Right.
Kyrie had a great game, but 3 guys can't really win you a game every single night. And the 2 of them, Claxton, he's a good, solid starter. He's definitely emerged with Vaughn as the coach. With Nash, he wasn't like, oh, it's Nick Claxton. It's nothing special. But with Vaughn, you can definitely see, oh, wow, he's actually good.
Right. I think that their head coach Vaughn, who took over, like I think November 12th, they said it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think he seems to be a good mentor for the Nets. He seems kind of low key, not not he doesn't seem like he carries much baggage or like he brings a lot of drama. He seems like he's just kind of a basketball guy. And that's definitely
Yep.
important for the Nets team that are known for being having a lot of drama around the
Yeah.
roster.
Yeah. I definitely think he shuts them up. Steve
Right.
Nash, I love Steve Nash. Great player, of course. I think he could still be a great head coach. He just didn't really get an opportunity in Brooklyn. And he's not the type of guy where he's going to shut you up. Whereas Vaughn is definitely going to do that because it's we barely know him, but we know him enough where he would do that.
Right.
But yeah, Ben Simmons tonight, he played limited, but when he was in the game, he did have 7 assists. It wasn't anything special to lead them to win the game. I think even if he did play the remainder of the game, I think we still would have won.
Mm-hmm.
And that's no disrespect to him because he is a great player still. But ever since that one playoff game where he missed that, well, he decided to not take the layup that was wide open, and he's
Yeah.
been bashed since. I think it's a mental block on why he's been playing bad since. But even if he would have played, I think we would have won.
Yeah, something I wanted to note was the rookie play tonight late in the fourth quarter. We saw Jalen Duren get that big block, chase
Yep.
down block, and then like maybe the next offensive possession, a slick pass from Jaden Ivey to Jalen Duren for Jaden Ivey for an and one layup. We saw Jalen Duren just kind of find his groove throughout this game, take what the defense was giving him, didn't force anything. I think that's what I love so much about Jalen, because you think a lot of guys, his role is kind of that energy guy where he gets those big blocks, those big dunks. Most of the time, those guys take bad, dumb shots because
Yep.
they're not the most skilled offensive players. But Jalen Duren is just so smart with his shot taking and only takes what the defense gives him. And I know we've kind of said that before, but it was just so nice to see him have such a refined game. He had 17 points, 7 rebounds, a little light on the rebound side, but in 17 points in 27 minutes, and then 7 for 8 from the field. So Jalen Duren proving that he's efficient and that I won't say controls the pace, but he is that anchor. I don't know necessarily a defensive anchor, but he's just that anchor for the Pistons that I really do feel like he has the presence that Ben Wallace did on the going to work Pistons.
Yeah, I think if he didn't get the 3 early fouls, I think he would have had 30 minutes at least. But I think he would have scored more and it would have had more boards. It's just limiting on defense when you're trying to get a board
Mm-hmm.
because in tonight's game, the refs were calling it by the book, which I appreciate. But it was more towards us that they were calling.
I think
Uh,
so too.
but I'm not arguing. We still won. But I think if Duren didn't get those 3 early fouls, he definitely would have played more. He would have scored more. And defensively, he would have been even more of a presence. I'm definitely taking 17 from him tonight. He's definitely been on a scoring run as of late.
Dude, absolutely. If he averages 17 points in like 10, 11 rebounds, I think he'll get to more eventually, that he'll average more than that eventually. But if he gives us 17 and 11, all
Yeah,
by all means, we'll take that. That is exactly
yeah.
what we want from a young center.
Yeah, and he's pretty much averaging a block a game too. So if he can
Yeah.
at least get 1 block to 3 blocks a game, that's even better. But uh, I want to throw out Killian Hayes tonight. 16 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, shot 6 of 12, 2 for 5 from three, and 2 for 3 at the free throw line with 25 minutes. He had a very, very solid night. I'm not complaining about his stats. It was a Killian Hayes stat kind of game.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's his bread and butter right there. The numbers he had tonight, and it's also good to see him kind of show that he's not in a slump after this Paris game. That's kind of what we're going to break into. That's what our mothership podcast for week 12 is going to be about, Killian Hayes and the situation around him. So as far as us breaking down his last couple months of play, it's really nice to see him bounce back after the rough Paris game.
Yeah, and this was even off the bench. He wasn't starting tonight. I mean, he did
Yeah.
have starter minutes, but he still came off the bench to start the game, and he still had 16 points. Who would have, honestly, if he would have started tonight, who knows? He probably would have had at least 20. So
Yeah.
I think tonight was a great bounce back game, and it's against a good team in Brooklyn. I mean, I don't think they're winning the chip anytime soon, but they have been playing great this season. So you have to credit Hayes for this game tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And then we have to shine light too on Sadiq Bey, 25 points, 9 rebounds, which is a little bit more than he
Yeah,
typically gets, and 5 for 8 from the three with 31 minutes. I mean, he had a really DeMar DeRozan-esque fadeaway jumper at
yeah,
the elbow, I think like middle of the fourth quarter. When he's knocking down those fadeaway elbow jumpers, you know he's on.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if he's starting to knock down a couple of those, you're like, oh, okay, Sadiq's about to get rolling here. Like, that's when he's at his most confident and when he's in his bag, when he's taking those fadeaway jumpers like a beast.
yeah. And you look at the matchup he had in those situations. You had Yuta Watanabe on him. Yeah. He Yuta is actually pretty fast for a center, but Sadiq can easily cross him up any day.
For sure.
And I love that matchup for Sadiq because that gives him the opportunity to either drive kick out or even step back three. And he showed in those situations when Yuta was guarding him, he still put up points and he was still scoring. He went 10 for 19 for tonight. Like, that's really good.
Yeah, we'll take it. For sure. Let me see in my notes. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, Ryan?
I just want to shout out Isaiah Livers tonight. Even
Right.
though he didn't have like wow stats, he was still diving on the ground for loose balls constantly.
Yeah.
And that's really what led us to get those key fast break points that increased our lead. Because honestly, if he wouldn't have done that, let's say the Nets get the ball, kick it to Kyrie, Kyrie hits a three. Next thing you know, this score would have been so much closer than it actually was. So credit is due to Isaiah Livers tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the thing about Isaiah, what I wrote down in my notes, because I like to write down bullet points when I'm watching the game with Isaiah, I called it Detroit style.
Yeah.
When he was diving on the ground for the ball, and he kind of had a couple other scrappy plays. The other thing is, though, he still keeps falling for everybody's pump fakes. He just falls for every single one of them. He's always constantly jumping. But yes, I love that Detroit style basketball, getting down and dirty, and that's definitely what Isaiah Livers is willing to do. And you can also call that winning basketball because that Detroit style grit basketball translates into winning. And you see those kind of momentum plays because when Isaiah dove for the ball, I believe it was Hami that got it and then immediately threw it up to Alec Burks for a layup, and then the Nets called a timeout. So we see that be a crucial point in the game. And if those foul balls go a different way, then who knows, Kyrie Irving, who's a beast tonight, by the way, might be knocking down a three, and there goes the momentum. So that's definitely a huge part of games that are decided on momentum.
Yeah,
Another,
the defense definitely won us the game tonight.
yeah, and those little effort plays. The other thing I wanted to point out with Detroit is, we're a young team, so we're going to make some mistakes. But tonight we only had 11 turnovers. I think that's a good number. You sometimes don't want to flirt too much with double digit. You kind of want to keep it below that. But we saw the Nets have 16. So when you're beating out and playing more efficiently than a solid team like the Brooklyn Nets, that's really nice to see and to show that Jaden Ivey, who started at the point guard position tonight, who's known for having some arid passes here and there, kind of kept it together. He's showing that he's getting that composure. He's showing that he's getting better throughout the season, which is amazing. We can't just look at the points on how if someone's getting better. We have to look at those little things like turnovers. So that was really, really, really nice to see. Only 11 turnovers on tonight's game. 3-point shooting wasn't a huge factor for us tonight. I mean, 11 3-pointers, nothing too crazy. We shot 50% from the field goal in all 4 quarters. That's really, really nice to see. We had 32 points in the second quarter, 31 in the third, and then that's the Brooklyn Nets. We had 43 points for the Pistons in the third quarter. That third quarter was very crucial. Yeah. It seemed like the Brooklyn Nets couldn't really stop us in the third.
Yeah, and honestly, going back to the defense on that side of the stuff, Brooklyn, yeah, Nick Claxton, Sumner, and Kyrie all had amazing games, but we really locked down everyone else, and that's the key thing in Brooklyn, because you can't just win a game with 3 guys. I'm sorry, but you can't, because there's 5 players on the court for a reason. And Joe Harris had some clutch shots, but he wasn't anything special tonight, and he's one of the key contributors on this team. So when you're not really locking down Kyrie can be Kyrie, because at the end of the day, he's not going to pass the ball. He's more of a scorer. So if you're locking down everybody else, he has no options. The paint was all clogged up tonight. So that really led to a lot of steals and a lot of fast break points for us. And it was just fun to watch.
And it seems like that's starting to become our bread and butter, that those transition plays. It seems like that when we're out in transition, getting those deep balls thrown down the court and getting out in the mid court, I think that's when we're at our best. One last thing I want to point out before we wrap up today's recap is back-to-back games, the Pistons have scored 130 points. I mean, most games, if you're scoring 130 points, you're winning the game. Didn't happen against the Milwaukee Bucks because we gave up 150, but 130 points in a game, especially in today's NBA, is very impressive, especially against even the Bucks. I mean, that's very impressive. The Brooklyn Nets, Nicholas Claxton is a very good defensive anchor. That Watanabe is a great defensive anchor. They got some great defenders, and we were able to put up 130. So I think that speaks a lot to today's Pistons team. And because I used to think previous years we couldn't keep up with today's scoring, but I really do think this Pistons team can keep up with the high scoring games.
Yeah. And okay. The main thing is, if KD would have played, it would have been a totally different game, honestly. Brooklyn wouldn't have just scored 122. They would have at least matched us at 130 plus, because KD is one of the greatest players of all time, one of the greatest scorers of all time. So I can't imagine what it would have been like with him on the court, with missing like some of our key guys like Cade and others. We had a great game, but Bogey just wasn't there. So if Bogey's not there with KD on the court, it probably would have been the Milwaukee game all over again.
Yeah, I agree. We need to have Bogey on for a game like this. Luckily, we just lucked out and KD was on the injury report.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for today's Revved Up recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Brooklyn Nets. That final score was 122, the Brooklyn Nets, to 130, our 313 Detroit Pistons. Before we end today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out or shine a light on this week's Mothership podcast. This week, this Saturday afternoon, we will be posting our Week 12 episode, where we will be breaking down Killian Hayes and the Paris game and possible trade rumors with the trade deadline coming up February 9th. So be on the lookout for that. Maybe see, do the Revved Up guys think maybe there's a Killian trade? Who knows? We'll see in Week 12. We'll see. And we will break down his last 2 months in his really good play. So we will get into that, and we will see you guys in the next Revved Up recap. Peace.